Okay, so tonight, webinar, we're going to talk about buying your own home, buying investment properties, building portfolios, DVA compo, a few other things. All right, really, really valuable stuff. I know, of course you're going to say that, Domo, but actually is enormously valuable to you. And if you're smart, you'll get in the zone and pay attention. This is the stuff the system should teach you, but it doesn't. I'm going to teach it to you, okay? So I know you've had a long day. I've had a long day too, but I'm here. I'm ready to play. I'm going to give you everything I've got. What I ask in return is that you just be present and listen to what I've got to say. Now, make sure you got a notepad and pen. You will regret not taking notes. They'll be like, oh, you'll wake up tomorrow, you'll be like, oh, what was that thing he said? That was worth a lot of money. I got to go look it up. So make sure you take notes. If you don't have a notepad and pen, go and just get some paper out of the printer. You need about 4 or 5 pages of paper to take the notes. I'm going to tell you what I think you should write down. Okay, legal disclaimer. Unfortunately, I live in a time where I have to put one of these up, but basically what this says is that the information tonight is general in nature only, illustrative, educational, should not be treated as specific advice for you and your situation because everyone's situation is different. To use a military analogy, consider what I'm going to teach you tonight as the doctrine, and then you need to obviously apply the doctrine to the situation on the ground, whatever your situation may be. We're also going to talk about investing. All forms of investment involve a degree of risk and potentially losing money. The only guarantee in investing is that if you do not invest, you will not make any money. So we are going to talk about property investing, arguably one of the safest and most effective forms of investment, and I'll make that argument to you tonight and you'll see it. So if you're a bit nervous about investing, residential homes in major capital cities and major regional centres, you will have nothing to worry about. And I've written books on it, right? And I've got the data to prove it. So whether you like it or not, you're playing a game. That game's called the property game. And in that game, you've got some cards to play. Now, you're forced to play this game whether you like it or not because you need somewhere to live. So if you're forced to play this game, you may as well learn the rules and play it well. Now, the rewards of playing this game well is an early retirement, okay, passive income, early retirement, be a multimillionaire, live an amazing life and see the world and support charities and provide a great life for the people, you know, your kids and their kids and things like that. Now, you can have 2 people side by side, same rank, same trade, same everything, okay, same age, and they get dealt the same cards. One ends up a multimillionaire retiring 10 to 20 years earlier, the other one doesn't. Why? The difference is very simple. It's not luck. Thinking that people just got lucky is a poor man's mindset and it's disadvantaging you. So stop thinking that way, right? It is simply an application of learning the knowledge and then actually taking action on it, right? That's the difference. Learning how to play this game and then taking action on it, okay? Now, I've seen this. I've been doing this for 15 years now, right? Your mindset is your biggest enemy. Your bad attitude is your biggest enemy, right? And I'll just give it to you between the eyes straight up. I see people like commenting on my Facebook ads saying, oh, this is all bullshit, right? But then I've got clients who have made hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, okay? And often only off 1 or 2 properties that we recommended to them, okay? So drop all that skepticism and just get into saying, okay, well, I'm just going to listen. I'm going to listen. Feel free to critically analyze what I say and ask whatever questions you want. But just you got to put aside all the skepticism because that skepticism is the first thing that's going to stop you from taking action. All right. Now, in this game, this property game, you've got cards to play, okay? And these cards are as follows. Some are civilian, some are ADF only. First homeowners grant. Biggest first homeowners grant in Australia right now is $50,000. Okay, that's in the Northern Territory. Stamp duty discounts, home purchase assistance scheme, HEPSI, HPAS, DHOAS, DHOAS lump sum, living in accommodation, service residence, RA. Now, all of these things are worth an incredible amount of money. And also DVA, we're going to talk about DVA compo tonight. The DVA compo is obviously not a housing entitlement, but often the hardest thing when you want to buy a house is just getting a deposit together. Now, if you're trying to chip away by saving a few $100 a pay to a savings account to try and get a deposit together, you are on the slow boat to China. Okay, there's much faster ways to get there, and I'm going to teach them to you tonight. And DVA compo is one of them. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about my DVA compo experience now, and then I'll talk about how to go about your DVA at the end in detail. All right. Now, I served in the regular army for 14 years, from 1996 to 2010. Served in East Timor, served in Iraq. I was an officer. I was an officer. I and I should have known all this stuff, right? And I didn't. Okay, and I saw people getting huge lump sums of money for DVA compo, but my perception of them was, well, these are the people who have been properly broken. They've been in an accident. They've had a vehicle accident, a parachute accident, or they've been blown up or wounded in Afghanistan or Iraq. And I thought that would never be for me. When I decided to transfer to the reserves in 2010, I had to go through the discharge process, right? Because you're leaving the regular army, so they still put you through the same discharge process, but you just, instead of getting out altogether, you go to the reserve, right? I did the transition seminar. Transition seminar was a joke, grossly underdone, run by people who at the time I thought didn't have any success in life themselves. And these are the people who are trying to set you up, trying to teach you what you need to do to be successful in a civilian life. And all the stuff I'm going to teach tonight was completely absent from the transition seminar, and probably still is. But I went to the medical discharge, not medical discharge, my discharge medical. So I get a bit dyslexic from time to time, bear with me. So my discharge medical, the unit doctor did it. He said, Damo, you've got two things here you could probably claim. And I said, oh, okay, what's that? And he goes, your right foot and your right shoulder, which I had injured in the line of duty. And he said, yeah, you can put in for these. So we'll fill the paperwork out, put them in. And then, and he said, you'll probably get a white card for that. And then if you have any medical problems relating to those, you can just get your white card from DVA and use that, and they'll pay for it. DVA will pay for it all. I was like, okay, cool, no worries. And I did not think at all I'd be entitled to any money. Fast forward about 9 years after being out and just sort of being around the veteran community and things like that, and constantly being sort of badgered and say, oh, Damo, have you done your DVA claims yet? Well, no, I don't think I'm entitled to anything. Mate, don't assume anything. Go get it checked out. I went and had it checked out properly. I didn't have 2 conditions. I had 14 conditions. And when I got it done properly, all 14 conditions were identified. They were accepted by DVA, and I received a gold card, which means free medical for the rest of my life for everything, no questions asked. And I got $430,000 in compensation for DVA. Now, I still have all my arms and legs. I've not been wounded in combat, not had a parachute accident, not had a serious vehicle injury, just lots of little injuries. So do not think that you cannot get DVA compo. Make sure, I'm going to show you at the end of the webinar tonight how you can do it, even if you're still serving full time. If you're still serving full time, you might just want to get some advice outside of the system. Identify those claims that you can put in without any detriment to your ongoing service. If there's other ones you're concerned about, you might just leave them and wait till you discharge till you do those. All right, now on the screen in front of you, first question I've got for you guys, get on the question box, get ready to answer. Let's say you did 25 years in the full-time defence force, okay? 25 years, you joined at 18 and you leave at, thanks Jacob, you join at 18 and you leave at 43, okay? 25 years. In that time, in those 25 years full-time, with the exception of DVA compo, which is the most valuable entitlement on the screen in front of you there? Which is the most valuable entitlement? 25 years, which is the most valuable entitlement? Okay, Yushman says DHOAS. Blake says service residence. William says DHOAS or RA. Okay, DVA, DHOAS. Other than DVA, guys. DVA depends on how busted you get. All right. All right. Okay, lots of answers there. All right, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is actually service resident or RA. That's the biggest, that's the most valuable. And I'll give you, well, let's do some basic math. How much less rent do you pay a week if you're in a service resident or on RA? How much do you reckon you save a week if you had to pay market rent? Almost half, right? 50%? Okay. All right, so give me a dollar figure. What do you reckon that is in the average capital city? How much do you think you're saving? Maybe 300 bucks. Let's say rent 600 and you're only paying 300. All right, 300 times 52 weeks, $15,600 a year times 25 years. That's 390,000 alone at a modest 300, like 600 bucks a week rent, which is pretty, that's like the cheapest locations now. Okay, so realistically, your service resident subsidy subsidised rent through RA or a service residence is actually worth about $500,000 over your career. Okay, if you had to rent on the open market, you'd be paying that in full. All right. DHOAS loan is worth $346,000 if you use it to maximum effect. Okay, DHOAS loan $346,000. All right. And then there's probably about $85,000 worth of grants and benefits for your first home. And then we've got DVA Compo on top there. So on the screen in front of you, there's literally over $1 million, okay, of money that you personally can get by serving. And by the way, you don't necessarily have to do 25 years in the regs, because DHOAS, you only have to do, you can do it in the reserves, 20 days a year in the reserves. You just have to do 2 years longer than everyone else, right? And if you start in the reserves. So a lot of this stuff is still like DVA Compo, DHOAS, still applicable to the reserves. The first time grant stamp duty is discounts to civilians get that, so everyone gets that. And the only permanent stuff is RA, service allowance, living in accommodation, sorry, service residence, living in accommodation, and HVAS Hep C. All right, so a lot of money on the screen. Now, where the system goes wrong is it doesn't teach people, first of all, what the entitlements actually are, and second of all, how to use them. Like if you've never played cards before, I could give you a deck of cards and go, this is the ace of spades, this is the king of hearts, but that you wouldn't know what value each of those cards are, right? But then if I taught you how to play poker, you would know the value of the cards. So what I'm going to do tonight is teach you how to play the property game, poker, right? And then you'll know how best to play these cards in that game to get maximum effect. Okay, so be present. During this presentation, I'm going to cover a few things: mindset shifts, the property game, and your housing entitlements. Now, for you to understand how best to use your housing entitlements, I have to teach you the property game. For me to teach you how to win the property game, I've got to shift your mindset on a whole heap of stuff, okay? And now, 99% of people who join the Defence Force come from the working class, okay? Now, in the environment we grow up in, we call what we call generational cycles, okay? So basically it says you're a product of the environment you grew up in. Now, the most commonly understood generational cycle is the welfare cycle. So we know that if a child is born into a housing commission home, mum and dad are on the dole, we know that that child is exponentially more likely to end up becoming that sort of adult themselves, right? It also works at the opposite end of the spectrum. If a child's born into a wealthy family with successful parents, those successful wealthy parents will teach that child the right behaviors of how to become successful and wealthy themselves, and that child will do well. Now, in the middle of all that, you got the working class, okay? And you'll know you are from the working class if any of the following sounds familiar to you. Study hard at school and then get a trade or a degree so that you've got a qualification to fall back on. Save your money. Don't waste your money on having fun. Save your money. Don't rent for the minimum amount of time, because rent money is dead money, and get into your own home get into the market as soon as you possibly can. Buy your own home first, pay it off as fast as you can. Put an extra bit of money onto your loan and pay it off as fast as you can. Your home is your greatest asset, and money won't make you happy. Money's the root of all evil. Any of those things sound familiar? Then you probably grew up in the working class, right? Now, so let me ask the next question I want to ask you guys is, what did you grow up in? How would you describe did you grow up in housing commission, working class, wealthy family, farming, overseas? What did you grow up in? You can't choose the circumstances you're born into, but you can choose the circumstances you remain in, right, as you become an adult, okay? So, and I'm very proud of my working class roots, and I'm very proud of what I've achieved, despite the odds, you might say. All right, we're also going to talk about DVA claims, and then I'll show you how to get more help at the end. All right, okay, first exercise. So you've just come into $150,000. You've inherited it maybe from a relative, or you won the lotto, whatever, okay? What would you do with that money? Now, I want you to answer this question, okay? What would you do with that money? Would you put it in a savings account? Would you put it on the share market? Would you buy one property with a 20% deposit, 80% loan? Or would you buy two properties with the minimum deposit, say 5%, and maximum lending? What would you do? So we're going to do some analysis now and see what we could do, right? All right, let's put in a savings account. Now, to get 3% on your savings, you have to earn 4.5% interest, okay? Because why? Because when you do your tax every year, you have to declare the interest you earn from savings, and that's taxable income. So the tax man's going to take a third of it. So just remember that whatever interest rate you're looking at for your savings, you're actually only getting 2/3 of that rate. But let's say if we add 3% to that, where does it end up? All right, 1 year, there we go. All right, 200 grand, whoopie-doo. If you've got money in a savings account, for God's sake, do something with it. Get it out of there, get it invested properly, because you're not even keeping pace with inflation. Inflation is controlled in this country at about 2 to 3%. So, you know, the cost of milk, the cost of bread, all that sort of stuff. And they do that by putting the interest rate up and down on mortgages, which controls the spending and keeps the economy stable, right? But you're not getting anywhere in savings account. So do make sure that you do something with it. All right, well done for being a good saver and having the discipline to save. That's important. However, you must invest that money, not just let it sit there in savings account. All right, shares. 7% per annum on shares. That's the historical average. Some people say 8%, but there's a rule, the 7-10 rule, which says that if you increase something by 7%, you will double it in 10 years. And there's the proof there, right? So we end up with 300 grand. Whoopie-doo. Draw your current salary from that. How many years until that runs out? All right. Now, the shares, if you're into shares, okay, that's fine. But just understand that shares, unless you're an early investor like on Shark Tank, where some budding entrepreneurs invented something and they come to you and they go, hey, I'll give you 10% of my company for 100 grand, you know, because I need the capital to kick the business off, you know. But if you're coming in, just your financial advisor told you to go and buy these shares, then you're looking at 7% per annum. Best, you know, maybe 1 year you'll do a bit better than the next year you'll halve it. All right, house prices. Winston Churchill said, I can see far in the future because I've stayed the past. And I can say that, at least as far as Australian house prices go, because I wrote that book there, The Housing Bubble Myth, in concert with my wonderful supporting act, Nicole Stein, who does a lot of research and writing on my behalf. Now, what I said to Nicole is I said, look, I like data, Nicole. Let's have a look. Let's go find out what the median house price was in every capital city in Australia. And I saw an article in the magazine maybe about 10 years ago where they did it. I thought they only did it for the 4 of them. And I said, let's do the whole show. Let's do the 8 capital cities. And what I want is a table that has like 1970 till 2023. And I want the median house price. And then the next column, I want the percentage change. So we did it. We created it, right? And what we found out is that the median house price, okay, now just be aware, the top of the market is very, like the mansions, they're very volatile in price. Middle of the market, rock solid, okay? And bottom of the market's rock solid as well in terms of stability of price point. But what I can tell you, because I've actually I've got the data, and if you become a client of mine, you'll get this book for free, but is that house prices always go up, okay? There's only about 1 year in 10 will they go down. And if they go down, they'll only go down by a single-digit percentage, 1, 2, 3% or something like that. In the history from 1970 onwards, there's only been 1 year in one city where house prices have dropped by more than 10%, and that was in Adelaide in 1992. And the previous year, 1991, house prices went up. Oh, sorry, that year, 1992, they went down by 17%, right? But the previous year in Adelaide, they went up 34%. So they went up 34% and then they come halfway back. I'd still be pretty happy with that. Outside of that, single digits, 1 in 10 years, 9 out of 10 years, going up, okay? Safest Houses was the name of my first book. That's why I called it that, because it's the safest form of investing because the prices are so stable. All right, and then we're seeing there you got these green boxes. That's where the price increased more than 10%, and that's where you've got the property booms occurring through each city, okay? So you can see when the booms have occurred. Now, the other reason why I wrote this book and the reason why I called it The Housing Bubble Myth is because the housing bubble is a myth, right? People say, oh, the housing bubble that's going to burst, it's all that. The media love rolling that headline out in order to scare the pants off you, to get you to watch that segment on TV or to buy that newspaper. And I'll give you a perfect example, right? So in this book, we've then got a series of articles that we found from the archives. The earliest one being 1981, I think, and the 1981 article, 1982, the golden bubble that talked about. So even back in 1982, they were banging all of it. But the article I want to share with you is this one here, okay, which is this is the Courier Mail. major newspaper in Australia in 2014, they published this article. Demographer Harry Dent predicts Australian real estate market bubble to burst and prices to drop 50%. So that was in February 5th, 2014. Okay, so let's go to the table and see what happened. Courier Mail's a Brisbane paper. So let's go to Brisbane in 2014 and see what it says. Brisbane, the median house price in 2014 was 459,000. Now, Harry Dent predicted it would drop 50%. So I'll read you the subsequent year prices. 465,000, 495,000, 518,000, 532,000, 538,000, 547,000, 630,000, 775,000. Right? Harry Dent's a moron, but he's got a qualification as a demographer, right? And he gets on TV because of it, and they pay him to be there, but he's an idiot, right? And the data doesn't support it. So when people say house prices double in value every 10 years, I can tell you that's not actually true, because the historical average is greater than double every 10 years, but there has been some 10-year periods where it comes up to about, it just falls a bit short. So it increased by 80%, not 100%, right? But it's hard to believe you could buy a house in Brisbane in 1970 for $8.5 grand, but you could. And if you bought that property, it would quadruple in value in the next 10 years from 1970 to 1980. And then if house prices had just quadrupled, you would tell me that's a bubble, Damo. In 10 years, house prices quadrupled, that's definitely a bubble. Guess what happened? Then they tripled the following 10 years, right? And then in the 90s with the recession we had to have, house prices still went up. Okay, they still went up, and they went up even in the worst times, they went up by 80%, right? And then the 2010. So to use a military term, house prices doubling in value every 10 years is a sound planning assumption, okay? So it's either going to come very close or it's going to far exceed that, right? All right, so then let's look at the housing options. Remember, we inherited 150 grand and we wanted to invest it. A lot of you said you'd do this, buy 80% loan. Now, the most expensive property you could buy with an 80% loan would be 600,000 because we need 20% deposit. So that chews up 120 grand. And then we need to leave some left over for stamp duty, legal fees, etc. costs. Okay, rent that property out for $600 a week. Now, why on earth would we do that? Well, here's why. Because in 10 years' time, the property is going to double in value. And the worst case scenario for the debt is that it's interest only the whole time. So now we've got $720,000. Now, you want to watch these bloody financial advisors, because they'll tell you, oh, don't buy a property, buy shares. You know, property and shares performs at the same rate. It doubles every 10 years. But with shares, it's liquid. You can sell them. You can cash in, cash out, you know, and you don't have to worry about bad tenants and stuff like that. Now, they're bastards, because one thing they don't tell you is they don't tell you that when you buy a property, you don't pay cash for it. See, when you buy a property, we borrow money from the bank. And instead of buying 150 grand worth of shares, we bought 600 grand worth of property. And when 150 grand worth of shares doubled in value, it became 300 grand. But when the 600 grand worth of property doubles in value, it becomes 1.2 million. And yes, we've got some debt to do it, but we get to keep all the capital growth. We don't have to share any of that with the bank, right? Not only that, now the rent has also doubled in value, and we've got a guaranteed passive income coming in, because $1,200 a week is more than enough to cover a $480,000 mortgage, right? And this is the point. Now, this is called leverage. Leverage is the secret. If you want to get ahead financially, if you're sick of buddy spinning your wheels and grinding it out, okay, you need to go and embrace good debt, which we'll talk about in there, as your friend, which is going to help you to invest and to get the return you're after. Now, here's the interesting thing as well. 150 grand turned into 720. So 150 grand, if you double it, that's 300. Quadruple it is 600. It's almost 5 times. We've almost got 500% return on our money, right? 500% return on our money. When we put in the share market, we only got 200%, right? You see the difference? It's huge. Now, apply this principle to the theoretically greatest degree, which is 2 properties, right? And now the reason why most people say don't borrow more than 80% is because you'll pay mortgage insurance if you do. Now, I say embrace mortgage insurance as your friend. It's not your enemy. It's your friend, because it allows you to buy 2 properties, not 1. We don't get rich by paying off a property. We get rich by getting more properties that all go up in value for us, right? So we get 2 properties, 5% deposits. You'll see the loans are bigger. In the previous example, the loan was 480. In this example, the loan's $570. Why on earth would we do that, right? Pay the mortgage insurance, 2 lots of costs. This is why. 10 years later, 1.2 million apiece, 630 equity in that one, 630 equity in that one, $1.26 million. Now, remember I said at the start, you can have 2 people, same rank, same trade, same everything. One person's got an education in how to do this stuff, and the other person doesn't. What person with the education takes action, becomes a multimillionaire. The person who doesn't, the person who's got their arms folded going, this sounds too good to be true, everything's a scam, don't trust anyone, don't, you know, that person's going to stay broke, okay? And the person who actually goes, you know what, other people are doing it, so I can do it too. I'm going to get educated, I'm going to get a good team around me, and I'm going to have a crack. That person does well. All right. The key point here that I just want to make to you is this power of leverage, okay? The power of leverage and using the bank's money, also known as getting high on opium, OPM, other people's money, the bank's money, right? Now, the reality is that if you don't have any money or you got minimal money, you're not going to get there with your own money. Okay? You need to invest other people's money. Now, if you're going to invest hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of the bank's money, would you put it anywhere other than property? You'd be mad, right? And the bank won't let you anyway. Now, ponder this. Why would the bank lend you up to 95% of a property, but only lend you 30% of a share portfolio? Why would a bank not lend you any money for a business? Okay, people go, oh, that's wrong. I got money for a business. No, you didn't. You got money against your house for the business. You got money against your house for the shares. See, the banks love lending money against real estate. Why? Because it's stable, right? It's stable, and it's historically proven to be stable. So that's why, right? And so if you feel like you need to be doing something, keep listening, because this is what it's about. Right. If you're a fan of shares, I'm going to challenge you on these 2 things. The 2 problems with shares. The first problem with shares is they're not leveraged enough. You can only go to 30%, whereas property we can go 90, 95, right? The second problem with shares is the dividends are not guaranteed. So if the companies are you're living off the dividends, if that's your passive income, then there's a tough, like a global financial crisis or something, the companies will cut your dividends, because they want to keep the money in the company to try and survive, right? The sucks is that if that's your source of income. Real estate, the dividends are guaranteed, right? And there's even little courts in every state where they take your tenant to court and make them pay their rent, right? And then the police will actually come. The sheriff will actually come and throw them out of the house once they're evicted. They'll actually throw them out, right? No one's going to come and throw the bloody CEO of Westpac out if they don't pay your share dividends. Right? All right. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my story and the lessons from my experience. Okay, so I grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney. I'll tell you about that. I'm actually the 4th generation of my family to serve in the army. My grandfather's in the Light Horse in World War One. My great grandfather, my grandfather's in the 8th Battalion in World War II. He was in the bombing of Darwin, fought the Japanese in New Guinea and Bougainville. My father's a Vietnam veteran. I went to East Timor and Iraq, and my son is actually in the army now. But if you find him, don't give him a hard time. He's his own man, and leave him alone. But he's a good young lad. But anyway, so the Pattos are very proud service in the army. But when I was about 1 year old, Dad got posted to Moorebank next to Holsworthy. Most of it's been demolished now. But and Mum and Dad decided to build a house out in Campbelltown, which in the late 70s was a new area, and everything was going fine in Campbelltown until they built the 3 housing commission estates, and that just kind of set the tone for the socio-economic system there. But when I was then about a year later, Mum and Dad got divorced, and I grew up with a single mum and 4 kids. It was very different back then. Child support wasn't really a thing. Dad stayed in the army, and Mum tried to raise the 4 of us kids on her own. So I know what it's like to be dirt poor. I know what it's like to come home and there'd be no food in the fridge and no food in the cupboard. We used to get like butter and sugar and mix it in a cup because that was like a delicacy. You try it; it's quite nice. But anyway, some nights we had pancakes. Like how I could tell you all the how poor stories we were. But I remember being very motivated to get out of that situation when I became an adult myself. I left home when I was 16. I became a landscape labourer. I stayed in school and I worked my weekends and school holidays, digging holes and moving heavy things from A to B. By the time I got to the army, I could dig a slit trench, no worries at all, because I'd already dug many of them big long trenches as a landscape labourer. I know what hard work is, right? And one thing I noticed, and I'm doing what I do now, I just love helping people who have a similar background to me to be successful, because I get it, like I understand the mindsets. And one of the things that you get taught, this is the first thing I want you to write down, is to work smart, not hard. So, you know, when you go up in the working class, you get told, work hard and you'll be successful. It's bullshit, team. If you work hard your whole life, okay, you're just going to end up broken and broke, okay? You'll probably, you know, you work long hours at work to get ahead. You're going to sacrifice your family. You're going to sacrifice your health, okay? You know, if you work hard, work in a physically demanding job your whole life, your body's going to be broken. You know, if you work in a stressful job your whole life, you're mentally going to break, okay? And the problem is, in the working class, we celebrate and applaud our hard workers. You know, we've got a big day at work tomorrow, lots to get done. Jono's at work. Everyone's happy because Jono's fit as a mallee bull and goes all day. At the end of the day, they go, well done, Jono. So glad you're here today, mate. It would have taken us much more time. And then if you're Jono, you feel good. You're like, oh, you like the praise. But guess what? Jono's not getting paid any more money for working hard, okay? And that's the sad reality. Now, when I was landscape labourer in 94, 95, which was when I was in year 11 and 12, I got $50 a day. Fast forward, $50, right, for the whole day. Fast forward to 2009. In 2009 was my last year in the regular army. I was a battery commander of 103rd Battery in Darwin, part of 812 Regiment. I was on 90 grand plus service allowance, call it 100 grand. My missus was on 60 grand a year for her civvy job. So we made 160 grand a year, right? Maybe 170 when you include the superannuation and stuff like that. Right. Meanwhile, so now what do we have to do to earn that 170 grand? Well, I did 300 days of 365 that year because I was out bush for 6 months of it. She would have worked 250 days of the year. So for 550 days of labour, we received $170,000. Meanwhile, the property portfolio went up $260,000 in capital growth, $260,000. And I reckon we would have done no more than a day's work to put ourselves in a position to make that happen. Now, you tell me what's working hard and what's working smart. Do you want to work 550 days of your labour between you and your partner to get 170 grand of salary? Or do you want to do like about 1 day's total worth of work to get yourself in a position where you've got a couple of properties that'll make more than that for you? And this is the point. This is the point. The point is, team, that there are hard ways to make money and there are easy ways to make money. And it's not, you don't have to be lucky. You just got to get the education and take action on it, right? Now, my escape Campbelltown plan was to join the army, and I was actually lucky enough to get direct entry Duntroon, which is quite rare. So I'm asking to Duntroon on the 8th of July, 1996. My regimental number is 2810571. My PMK's number is 8257117. If you're fast enough to write that down, you can look me up tomorrow. You'll see that I'm still in the system, but I'm an inactive reservist. And I just want to stress, I'm not talking to you in any way, shape or form representing the Defence Force tonight at all. I'm representing my private company that I started called Integrity Property Investment. Now, that company started 15 years ago. Currently has about 35 staff, including a lot of veterans. My 3 senior consultants in the company are all veterans. One's ex-Navy, one's ex-Army, and one's ex-British Army. And we've got a few more in there as well. Plus a whole team of everything you need, one-stop shop for property. We do it, right? But anyway, back to Duntroon. Graduated December 97, got allocated to the artillery. And so I was an artillery officer, okay? And I got deployed to East Timor. My first deployment was East Timor with 5-7 RAR, 2002, 2003, before they split it. And I hear they've put it back together again. But, and when I got back from Timor, I had 160 grand in the bank and I was debt free, okay? Now, a lot of you might be finally cleared some bad debts. You've got some cash in the bank and you're looking what to do. You're in the right place, all right? Now, the next thing to write down is that quote there, okay? So far you should have work smart, not hard, okay? Work smart, not hard. And the next is a fool learns from their own mistakes, a wise man learns from mistakes of others. And if you're wise, if you go, oh, I want to make my own mistakes and learn from them, don't tell me what to do. Right, stop. Shh. Bad attitude. Usually that's a teenager's attitude when they're rebelling against their parents. But as an adult, it's a really dumb way to live your life. Okay, doesn't matter what you want to do, someone's already done it. And the smartest way to learn how to do it is just learn from them. And property is a very expensive teacher if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, so you must make sure that you've got that support around you and you get it done. Anyway, this is the first property we bought, number 50 Street and Parade, Everton Park. Okay, the reason why there's a number 6 on there is because I'm now going to remind me to tell you the 6 big mistakes. So the next thing to write down is the 6 big mistakes, and then make a list 1 to 6 underneath and get ready to fill them in as we go. Now, bottom line up front, know this: 9 times out of 10, it's a mistake to buy your own home first. 9 times out of 10. And I'll tell you why. Because 9 times out of 10, you do not live in the number 1 booming location in the country. You do not. Now, every time, write this down. Every time you buy a property, you have an opportunity to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every time you buy a property, you have an opportunity to make hundreds of thousands of dollars if you get one thing right. And that is that the property is in a booming location, not necessarily where you need to live. Now, people say, oh, you know, we're going to talk about whether rent money is dead money in a minute, right? But the poor teach their kids, rent money is dead money, buy your own home as fast as possible, pay it off as quick as you can. And guess what? Where does that get them? They stay poor. And I'm going to show you the numbers and show you the different courses of action and show you why. Very simple to understand. All right. So mistake number 1 is wrong city. So I was posted to Darwin, and then I got back from East Timor in middle of 2003. Got a posting order. You're going to Brisbane, January 2004. So we're right. When we get to Brizzy, we're buying a house. So we bought a house, and you know, both sides of the family were saying, buy your own home, buy a house in Brisbane. And most of our family lived in Brisbane, and they were saying by this stage, like my family moved from Sydney to Brisbane, and they said, you know, when you get posted away, we'll look after it for you. And so, okay, no worries. So then, so that's what we did, right? And we got a $7,000 first homeowners grant back then. It's a lot more now, 30,000 in Queensland now, but and we, you know, went and did the whole thing. We got the Westpac loan. Was it the West? No, the NAB loan, which was before DHOAS. It was an $80,000 loan. We got that. We did the whole thing, right? Now, problem with this is as follows. In 2004, Brisbane was precisely the wrong place to buy a property, because in 2004, Brisbane house prices had just been through a boom, and in the previous 5 years, house prices had doubled and had gone quiet. Okay, so we bought at the end of the boom, not at the start of the boom. So let's just talk about booms. What you need to understand is that house prices just don't keep going up all the time. That goes in waves, right? And it's all about supply and demand. Now, listen carefully what I'm about to teach you, because once you understand this, you'll be really good at picking hot spots, right? So why would the price of something go up? Let's say you've got 10 people who want to buy something, but there's only 5 somethings for them to buy. So 5 of them are going to get it and 5 are going to miss out. What are they naturally going to do? They're going to offer more money to get it, right? And the person who's got who's prepared to pay the most is going to secure the commodity that they want. Now, this works for property, that works for all commodities: iron ore, gas, coal, bananas, whatever. Okay, when demand is equal to supply, prices stay the same because everyone's happy. There's enough supply to give everyone what they want, no competition, so therefore prices stay the same. Then something will happen that'll trigger demand, and demand will be greater than supply. When demand is greater than supply, and in the property context, that's number of houses for sale versus number of buyers who need somewhere to live, and it works the same in rent, number of houses for rent versus number of renters, they will start outbidding each other. You see it, they call it a rental auction, you know, where the renters, they all turn up to the open home, and there's 50 people who want to rent the house, and so they start on the lease application, they offer $100 a week more to secure it, right? And so it works the same way. But that's what triggers a boom. Now, with house prices, booms go for about 3 to 5 years. And the reason, and I've proven that with the data, right? But the reason for that is, once our house prices start booming, the people who make housing, which is the government rezoning the land developers who come in and buy that land, chop it up into a housing estate, and then the builders that build the houses on it, they ramp up their own production, right? And they go, right, we've got a bloody housing crisis, we need to release more land, and away they go, right? By the time from releasing the land to a completed house coming on the market, that whole sequence, right, takes about 3 to 5 years, because the land developers take a year or two just to get in, buy the site, turn it into streets and blocks of land, etc., etc. So then what happens? So you have this 3 to 5 year period where demand's greater than supply, so prices just keep going up. and then the supply increases because the production's been increased, and it comes on the market, then it equals out again. Then you got the peak of the market, so you have a flat, a boom, and a peak, and at the peak you then get a slight oversupply, and that's where the prices will come down, just that small amount, about 5%. Now, the reason for that is because there's more. As soon as the prices stop going up and start coming down, they'll stop releasing more land, they'll hold back on production, and then that will reduce supply back to equal in demand, and it goes flat again. Okay. Now, why is that important? Because we want to learn how to hotspot. So we need to work out where we can buy, where there's going to be more demand for property, right? Now, at a national level, all the cities, they move at different stages, right? And usually led by Sydney and Melbourne, and then it gets too expensive there, so people move to Brisbane, then they move to Perth, and then, you know, there's actually an organic trend that gives evidence of that in the charts, and you can see it, you know, if you analyze the charts. But then there's more tactical things that change it as well, all right? So mistake number one is wrong city. We bought in Brisbane when we should have bought in Perth. Now listen carefully, this is what we should have done. We should have stayed in the bloody Marrick Quarter, which was cheap as chips rent. I think it was about 150 bucks a pay back then or something, or maybe it was 300 a pay, 300 a fortnight, 150 a week. What we should have done is stayed in the Marrick Quarter and bought an investment property in Perth. Because had we bought investment property in Perth in 2004, 4 to 5 years later, it would have been worth 300 grand more, okay? Now, this is what you call an opportunity cost. And so next to wrong city, I want you to write minus $300,000, just to remind you of what that means. It's opportunity cost. It's because you went left when you should have gone right. Because you bet on black when you should have bet on red, okay? Because you bought your house, you're using your poor man's mindset, your working class mindset, and go buy my own home first, when you shouldn't have done. You should have stayed in the rental and bought an investment property first, okay? Now, if you came to this webinar tonight with the intention of buying your own home, that you might be right, you might be wrong, but pay attention. By the end of the webinar, you'll know whether you need to stick to that decision or switch. All right, just have an open mind, yeah? All right, mistake number two is wrong suburb. So once you've worked out which city is booming, then all the suburbs in that city will be going up in value. But some suburbs will do better than others because of local tactical factors on the ground. Now, thinking back to supply and demand, what could they be doing in an area that would all of a sudden attract more people to want to live in that area? Think infrastructure. What could they build in a suburb that will make that suburb more popular, and all of a sudden a heap of people will want to live there? Okay, so there's job creation and then there's amenities. So if someone, now job creation is an interesting one. Job creation doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to bring people into the area. So someone might build a big warehouse or a big factory that's got 500 jobs in it. Doesn't look pretty, but that's 500 people that need somewhere to live. And economics doesn't know pretty. Economics just knows supply and demand. So what we do at Integrity Property is we're always looking for job creation and infrastructure projects. And we know to pick the city first, and then we go in there and we'll find out where the infrastructure is. We put the clients in there, right? And that's how they make a lot of money, right? So just give you an example, about 4 or 5 years ago, I heard there was a school in that, I won't say where it is, I'll keep that secret. I'll tell you, become a client, I'll tell you. So there was a school that had been voted Australia's #1 high school, number one public high school, right? So I thought, what does that mean for property? Well, it means that if you live in the catchment, you get to send your kids to the best public school in the country. I said, so people are going to want to move into the catchment of that school now in order to send their kids there. First thing. Then I saw the next suburb over, there was a logistics, what they call a logistics estate, like an industrial estate, that was being doubled in size. The council there was a big nature reserve next to it. Council had rezoned that so that they could double the size of the industrial area in order, and 6,000 jobs are being created. Now, to give you an idea, Laverack Barracks in Townsville has 6,000 people on it, right? So they're putting a Laverack Barracks in, basically, from an economic sense. And then just down the road, there was a whole suburb that was acreage properties, and they rezoned that to medium density. And each of these acreage owners was selling off one by one, and there was land becoming available in there. So we put clients in there. We put clients in there 4 years ago for $450,000. All their houses are worth over 800 grand now. Okay. Now just think about what return is that. Okay. What return is that? So if you bought a $450,000 property, you put a 45 grand deposit down, maybe 25 costs. So you've paid like $70,000 as your investment. Your mortgage is about 400. Okay, 405. So you've put 70 grand of your money in, and now then the house is now worth 4 or 5 years later, it's worth 800. Your mortgage is still the same, interest only. So you've got 400 grand of equity. Now you tell me what 70 grand becomes 400 grand in 4 to 5 years. What return is that? Well, 70 times 2 is 140. 140 times 2 is like 280. Okay, so we've done 400%, and we're not even anywhere near 400 yet. So it's like 500 to 600% return in 4 to 5 years. This is what I'm talking about, right? And here's the thing: your financial advisors aren't allowed to give you advice on property investing. All right, it's been there all along, team. Property investing, property investing, property investing. Right? It's the easiest money you ever make, and if you get it right and you do your research. So anyway, mistake number 1 was wrong city. Mistake number 2, wrong suburb. And so that's it. All right, mistake number 3, old property. Okay, never buy an old property. Always buy brand new. Now, people will go, oh, well, I'll tell you what, if you don't like money, buy an old property. Okay, if you want to bleed cash flow, buy an old property. It's just the way it is in Australia. Let's say you got 2 houses side by side. One's brand new, one's 20 years old. Otherwise, they're the same. They're worth the same. They rent for $500 a week. Everything's the same, except one's brand new, one's 20 years old. The brand new property will cost you $200 a week less to hang on to than the 20-year-old property. And I'll tell you why, right? So $200 a week is 10 grand a year. Now, what does 10 grand a year buy you? It buys you a family holiday overseas every year. It services a lease on a car, so you can always have a nice car. You know, like this is the difference. And then people get too pig-headed and stubborn and they don't listen. And then they end up buying a property that costs them 10 grand a year more than it needs to, right? Now, so the first reason is depreciation. The second is maintenance. Now, we'll talk about maintenance first. Okay, so maintenance. Once a house is 20 years old, it starts needing bulk maintenance. Repaint the inside, repaint the outside. Now, how much would it cost to do all these things? Repaint the inside of a house, repaint the outside of a house, replace the carpets, replace the curtains and blinds, replace all the air conditioning units, replace the hot water system, renovate the bathroom, renovate the kitchen. How much would all that cost? Refresh the landscaping outside. So once a house is 20 years old, you need to budget at least $5 grand a year or $100 a week, right? So you might be getting $500 a week rent. You're losing 20% of your money to the maintenance budget, right? And this is where people go wrong. They go, oh, I'll just buy an oldie. I'll buy a fixer-upper. We'll get to that in a second, right? And you bleed money in maintenance. Now, the other one is depreciation. Now, what's depreciation? Now, theoretically, the building you're sitting in right now watching this webinar from is going down in value. The curtains are going down in value, carpets going down in value. Now, if that's an investment property, the government allows the landlord to claim that theoretical depreciation on tax. And a brand new house gets the best tax return, right? Because you can claim about $20,000 of depreciation in the first year. Now, if you claim $10,000 and you're on the 30% bracket, you'll get $3,000 back. So if you claim $20,000, you're going to get $6,000 back. $6,000 a year extra in your tax return is $115 a week. So back to comparing the pair, 2 properties side by side, both rent for $500 a week. Brand new property, no maintenance. Why? Because it's brand new and it's getting extra $115 in the tax return, $615 in the hand. Old property, okay, is getting $500 a week rent, losing $100 to the maintenance budget, and gets maybe $15, not $115 depreciation, right? So it's got $415 versus $615. Now that's a 50% difference in the return that you ultimately get. Never ever buy an old property unless you're hard of learning, right? Unless you don't like money, you don't like cash flow. Really, really important. All right, renovate. To this day, I've not met anyone who has made a legitimate profit doing a renovation. Not one worthy of note. Now, I've had people say, oh, no, Damo, not true. I'm your first guy. All right, tell me about it. And they go, I made 150 grand on my reno. I go, well, okay, I'm not saying you didn't. Let's hear about it. Now, the first question I asked them is, during the renovation, how much of your capital growth was organic market growth because the area was booming in the first place? And I go, look, if you bought that property and you didn't do any renovation, would it have gone up in value? And they go, oh yeah, but not as much as it did. Right. So the reno deserves some credit, but the organic growth deserves credit as well. How much of it was organic growth that would have happened anyway? Oh, maybe 100 grand. I go, right, snap, right there. So your reno actually made 50 grand, not 150, because you would have made 100 grand anyway, right? They go, that's a fair point. I'm like, it is a good point. All right. How much did you spend on tools and how much did you spend on materials? Okay. And then whatever's left over is what you made from your reno, right? And then I ask this question: how many hours did you put into the reno? And then we divide the amount, the net profit by the hours, and that's how much you got. Doing a reno, all you do is effectively give yourself a part-time job, okay? And there are other part-time jobs that pay a lot better than doing a reno, okay? Now, there are some people who should renovate. They are the people who are full-time tradies, who have other jobs that they're getting. They've already got the tools, and they're getting surplus materials from other jobs. They've got a bunch of mates who will help them, right? They're the only people who should be doing renos. They'll do it. But if you're not a full-time tradie, then it's going to take you 3 or 4 times longer than you think it is. The quality of your work is going to be half as good, and you're going to lose all your spare time. We did a reno, right? You know why? Because I'd watch those bloody TV shows. You know, Alison's doing one right now. Get the experts in, Ali. That's my advice. Get the experts in, knock it on the head, get it done, get it out of the way. Don't try and do it all yourself. If you're enjoying it, do it yourself as a hobby, but you're not going to make significant money from it. All right, I have seen renovations claim people's marriages, claim their health. I've seen people like drop saws through their fingers and fall off ladders. My own mother fell off a ladder doing a reno. She ended up needing back surgery and then got complications with back surgery after that. Like, it's just, you know, think about your to-do list right now. How many little projects you got around the house that you're trying to get to? Do you really want to give all of your remaining free time to a reno? Don't renovate. Right, mistake number 5, no mentor or team. No mentor, no team. No mentor, no team. Now, when I got off the plane from Timor, if I had someone like who I am now or my senior consultants are now, grab me and go, what's your plan with this money, Damo? Oh, I'm thinking about just buying a house in Brizzy. You got a posting on to Brizzy? No, wrong answer. Boom. What sort of house do you think about buying? Buy something in Perth. What sort of house? Oh, I'll just buy a fixer-upper. No, whack, boom. Brand new house in Perth. You know, we would have done so well, you know. Alison says, no, I'm not. It's killing me, taking forever. Right, so you're feeling it, Ali, right? You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so the 5th mistake is no mentor, no team. So when I built Integrity Property, I thought about, okay, that guy who got off the plane from Timor, what did he need? And what he needed was an education, a proper education. He needed a mentor and needed a team to get it done for him, okay? And so he could just focus on what he was doing. And that's what you need. You need a mentor, you need a team to get it done for you, a team that you can trust because they are of good character and they are competent, okay? And all of my people are of good character and they are competent, otherwise they don't work for me, right? When you become, I could go down that tangent, but as you would expect from someone with my background, I'll put them through the ringer. Any breach of integrity, gone. It takes a lot of work to become a senior consultant, and we do a whole heap of always training all the time. All right, so, and then the final mistake is procrastinating, putting it off, finding an excuse to not do it. Now, I say to people, take a day off work, put in leave. Ask your boss if you can knock off at lunch because you've got an appointment with the bank after lunch. When I was a boss in the Army, as long as there's nothing critical, I would have let every soldier go. If they were taking care of their finances, taking care of their family, yeah, mate, off you go, no dramas at all. Wouldn't even ask them to put in the leave out, right? But but you take time off. Now, let me ask you, why do you think I say put your property investing above your job? Why is your property investing more important than your job? Why should you take leave from your job to do your property investing? Because I'll tell you something, money, right? Your job will stop making money for you the day you quit, but your properties will work for you forever. They'll work for you till the day you die. They'll work for you when you're sick. They'll work for you when you're well. They'll work for you they'll work for your children after you go, okay? And the returns are bigger. One day's work produced 260 grand capital growth in a single year versus 550 days work that produced 170 grand worth of wages, right? And it's very, very important. So make sure, yeah, time is money. Make sure you get that, you understand that, you know. I've had people say, oh, sorry, Damo, I meant to get that to you, but I was busy at work. I'm like, dude, fuck work. Pardon my French, but, you know, like, don't tell me there's 24 hours in a day. You don't tell me you haven't got a spare half hour to do this, because you do, right? And it's really, really important. You know, I'm still in the Army. I'm a inactive reservist now, and I'm still loyal to the Army, but I'm telling you, this before the Defence Force, okay? All right, next. Okay, end up selling that property and cutting our losses, went to Iraq in 2005. When I got back from Iraq, I had two things that are relevant here. The first is I had $110,000 in the bank, no property because we sold the first one, 110 grand in the bank, but more importantly, the 3 golden rules. And I should apologise for swearing. I think we call it verbal punctuation, but it's unnecessary, so I apologise for that. But I just really wanted to make the point to you about how you need to get your priorities in right. Okay, golden rule number 1 is to buy where it's booming. And, you know, whenever you buy a property, buy where it's booming. Now, the poor teach their kids to buy their own home first and pay it off as fast as possible. The rich don't actually teach their kids that. The rich teach their kids to rent where you need to live and buy where you're, rent where you need to live and buy where you're going to make money, okay? Rent where you need to live and buy where you're going to make money. Really, really important. So golden rule number 1 is to buy where it's booming or invest where it's booming. The opposite to mistake number 1, right? And I'm going to give you the other, so write that down, 3 golden rules and then the list, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to give you the other 2 later in the webinar, just to keep you in suspense. All right. Feel free to ask those questions in the background, team. My team will answer them, but at the end of the webinar, I'll answer any of them that remain unanswered. All right. I then joined the property investment industry when I left. I decided to leave the army, well, not altogether, but transfer out of the regs, and I worked for another company. Now, what I realized when you're working in Civvy Street, we have to remember that we went through a filter, right? We went through recruitment, psych screening, then we went to basic training. At basic training, all the thieves, bludgers, and liars were beat out, and 99.9% of people in the Defence Force are of high character and can be trusted. You can leave your wallet on the table in the brew room. Someone's just going to pick it up, see who it belongs to, and come and find you and give it to you, right? And without taking any money. It's a utopian society. When you get out in the Civvy Street, you've got to remember everyone's out there, right? And so some people might have grown up in a great family and their parents beat those values into them and they're good. Maybe they went to a great school that taught them, but you can't take it for granted. And what really shocked me is when I went to work for that other company, a civilian company, I was just shocked that there's just complete lack of integrity. So I decided to start my own company, and that's why I called it Integrity. I've been published a bit. I first got published in the Smart Property Investor magazine, and there's a long story about that, how I ended up in there, but that was good. And then I decided to write a few of my own books. So the first book I wrote was Safe as Houses. You can get an electronic copy of that off the website, but it's a bit out of date now, so I would probably not do that. But this book here, there's an ADF version of that book, their extra version, and we just had it updated actually, and it's got a bit more information in it now. Wealth Through Property is the big book. If you want to learn, if you really want to learn about property investing, you can just get my team to do it all for you and understand it at a basic level. And my team will do the rest. If you really want to nerd out on it, you want to read that book there. And it's basically the doctrine manual for property investing. Very, very thorough. 72,000 words. Makes a good doorstop if you need one. But really, really good. Very proud of that one. Every client gets a copy of that. Then the housing bubble myth, which we talked about. Every client gets a copy of that. And then hang on, go back, and then client success stories. Now, well, I know a lot of people are skeptical, so I said to the team, I said, let's write a book, let's interview our clients, and we'll just have a chapter from each client about what they've done. And there is 11 clients in this book, and we're currently working on expanding that to probably another 20 or 30 in the updates with some new clients in there. And of the clients, 8 of the 11 in the book, 8 of them are serving or ex-military, and 3 of them are civvies. But so you get a copy of that as well, and you can have a read about that and see that they are indeed real people just like you, and they're just smart enough to commit to the process and take action. All right, at the end of the webinar, I'm going to try and sell you something. Okay, I'm going to encourage you to become a client. You don't have to. You're welcome to stay at the webinar. You don't have to, but this is the process we take you through, the integrity process. All right, so first of all, it starts with training. Then you can have a free phone call one-on-one for 15 minutes with one of my senior consultants, and they'll just talk to you about, you can get all your questions answered. But listen, you might want you can skip that step and go straight to a strategy session if you're already comfortable and you want to do it. $297 for the strategy session, 100% money back guarantee. Now, we then do that session online now. You can meet face to face if you really want to, but even the people, I'm in Brisbane, I think one of the guys is on the Sunshine Coast, the other two are in Brisbane, but it's senior consultants. But we usually do them online. Even the Brizzy people do them online now. It's just more convenient. Cameras on, you can see each other's face and talk, you know. And then out of that comes a client plan. From there, we then execute that plan for you. Now, when you're ready to get a property, if you want to go your own home, we'll help you do that. If you want to go investment, we'll help you do that too, and we'll give you an brief on the locations and the reasons why. You'll be very impressed by the research, okay? All the research is provided, and all the links of the original source of that information is provided, and it's hyperlinked so you can click it. And if you want to nerd out on the research, you can go and follow all the rabbits down all the burrows, read all the original information for yourself, so that you can be as comfortable as you like about why we're recommending that location. All right, then we secure the best properties for our clients, finance, property up and running, property established, rental management established, review and repeat. Now, if at any stage during the webinar you want to book yourself in, you can use that QR code there and you will save $50. So instead of being charged $297, you'll be charged $247, and then you can book yourself in. Now, 100% money back guarantee. So if you do your appointment and you feel it was a waste of time, you didn't get anything out of it, and you don't want to go any further, then you can just ask for your money back, and you'll get your money back, and we won't ask any questions. We'll be disappointed, maybe a little bit heartbroken, and we want to maybe ask for some feedback, but you don't have to give any if you don't want to. 100% money back guarantee. No one ever does that, by the way, but it's important that it's there because I just want to take all the risk out of it for you. There's no risk, okay? All right, 8 mindset shifts. That's the next thing to write down. Mindset shifts 1 to 8. First one is you haven't been educated yet, right? So if you haven't been taught how to do something properly, maybe that's why you're not getting a result, okay? So most of us born low middle income families, we don't get taught it in school. Snap, get educated. That's what we do. We're going to teach you how to do it properly. We're going to show you all the stuff. You're going to have someone you can pick up the phone to and go, hey, can you explain how this works to me? Sweet. Number 1, get educated. Right. Number 2, you're not better off doing everything yourself. If these words ever come out of your mouth, right, you want something done properly, do it yourself. No. If you've ever come to that conclusion, it's because you made a mistake. And the mistake you made was you gave the job to someone who was incompetent and or unreliable, okay, and bad character and incompetent. And that's not how you succeed. The way you succeed is you build a team of people around you who you can trust, who are more competent than you at that particular thing. Now, you already have a bit of a team like that. You've got a family doctor, maybe you've got an accountant, things like that. But what you need to do is do that, right? Now, the right answer, if you want something done right, you give it to someone else who's trustworthy and more competent than you to do for you. That's the correct answer, okay? Build a team. You're not better off doing everything yourself. Money will make you happy. There's old say money won't make you happy. Rubbish. There's a lot of things that poor people say to other poor people so they don't feel bad about being poor. I'll just prove this right now. If you won the lotto tonight, would you be happier? Of course you would be. But guess what? Life costs money. Having a few toys, going on holidays, not having to work because you don't need the money, sending your kids to really good schools, helping people in times of disaster, and funding your own retirement costs money. Money will make you happier. Stop telling yourself it won't. It's a disabling mindset. It demotivates you to learn about money and demotivates you to take action on money. If someone says that to you, just say, actually, no, that's not true, is it? You know, because it's not. All right, number 4, you cannot save your way to wealth. Let's just say for 1 year, you tried to save as much money as you possibly can. How much could you save in 1 year? Just in your own mind, think of what that is. Okay, now, how much could you save in 10 years if you lived that way? So let's say you live like a pauper for a year, right? No movies, no going to the movies, no going to restaurants, no Uber Eats. Okay, we're going to ride a bike to and from work. We're going to buy all our food in bulk on special from the discount supermarket. We're going to food prep. We're going to take a cut lunch to work. We're going to read books from the dollar store, you know, to save every cent we possibly can. How much could you save in a year? And then imagine living like that for 10 years. You wouldn't have any friends and you'd probably be a really boring, dull person. But imagine living that way for 10 years. How much money would you have? And then add a bit of interest, like compounding interest or whatever. And then how many years could you live on that money? Could you retire before you ran out of money? And this is the problem. Saving money and then spending it, it's basically you're going to live okay for a few years and then the money's going to run out. having money in the bank is not how you retire. What you need is passive income. What's passive income? That's money that you earn routinely, like a paycheck, but you don't have to go to work to get it. And how do you develop a passive income? You own stuff that pays you money, like you own investment property that pays you the rent. You own a business that pays you a profit dividend every year, right? And that's the way we build a passive income. All right, number 5, your home is a liability, not an asset. Now, people say your home is your greatest asset. No, it's not. Your home is a liability, okay? Ask a wealthy person whether your home is an asset or a liability. They'll tell you it's a liability. Ask a poor person, they'll tell you it's your greatest asset. Now, listen to me carefully. Anyone who tells you your home is your greatest asset, stop listening to their financial advice. Stop, right? Because what that means is that their home is the most expensive thing they have. And what's going to happen to them in retirement is this. They're going to go off the cliff, right? And it's called eating your house. So it goes like this. So you pay the house off and you feel very proud of yourself. You mentioned quietly to a few family members at the next barbecue, yes, we paid the house off last week. Very proud. Jesus, it's a relief. God, now don't have to pay that bloody mortgage anymore, right? So then, and people go, yeah, good on you. Well, that must have took a lot of discipline. Well done. Then you go into retirement and you've got your pension. Problem is your pension's not enough. Okay, and your pension's slightly indexed, but it's not it's indexed for inflation, but not for cost of living. And what happens is that area that you live in and everything else gets more expensive. Also in retirement, you find you need more money in retirement than you did when you were working, because when you were working, you spend all your time at work. In retirement, you're sitting around bored. You want to go on holidays, you want to go on cruises, you want to go and drive around Australia in a caravan, and that all costs money, you see. And then what happens is you run out of money and you realize that you don't have anywhere, and you get to about 75, 80, and you go to a financial advisor who probably got you into this predicament in the first place because they didn't teach you about property. You go, we're running out of money. This is not enough to live on. What are we going to do? And the financial advisor says, well, nothing you can do really, because, you know, that's all you got. You go, well, what about your house? Do you really need such a big house? Oh, we don't want to sell the house. The kids grew up in that house. We've got notches on the wall where we measured their height every birthday. Oh, well, you know, you really don't have much of a choice. If you sell your house, you'll be capital gains tax exempt. And we can just, you know, buy something half the size for half the price and invest the rest, and then you'll be right then. And then you do that, right? And then you die near broke anyway, right? I've got a real issue with it. I've got a real issue with these financial advisors not teaching you about property investing, and you should too. All right, your home is not your greatest asset, it's a liability. Even when you pay your mortgage off, your house will still cost you money, right? And yes, it's going up in value, but you can't spend that money without selling the house, right? So the equity in your house is almost irrelevant. There's one thing we can do, but talk about that in a second, but it's almost irrelevant. Okay. And there's no passive income coming in, so you got to pay. But you still be mortgage. You might be mortgage free, but you won't be council rates free, insurance premium free, maintenance free. Remember, once your house is 20 years old, it's going to cost you at least $100 a week in maintenance bills, and so on and so on. All right, number 6. Understand what a real asset is. Now, the common definition of an asset is anything you own of value that you can sell for money. But like the old Valvoline ad that said, oils ain't oils, well, assets aren't assets. Some assets will make you rich, some will make you poor. Now, if I got you to write a list of what all your assets are, you would write down a list of everything that you own that's of value. But a real asset has to go up in value and produce an income, okay? Must go up in value and produce an income. Now think about it. If the stuff you own is going down in value, is your net worth increasing or decreasing? It's decreasing, right? So it must be going up in value, and it must produce an income, because if it doesn't produce an income, it can't do 2 things. First of all, it can't pay its own bills. It can't pay its own council rates, its own insurance and maintenance bills and things like that. The second thing is it can't produce you a passive income that will replace your need to work. That's why it's critical that it has a passive income coming off it. So most of you would list your car as an asset because it's of value, but your car's going down in value and costing you money, okay? You can buy a car with a $40,000 car with a loan. By the time that loan's paid off, the car will be worth $20,000, and you would have paid in excess of $80,000 in interest charges, loan repayments, and all the other associated costs of running that car. Cars are a liability. They do not make you rich. Now, the wealthy do buy cars, and one of my mentors, who's an Australian billionaire, taught me a very interesting way. He said, how do rich buy their cars? If we've got time at the end, someone asked me, how do the rich buy their cars? Right, your own home of value goes up in value. So that's an asset then, Damo, but it doesn't produce an income. so it doesn't meet the criteria, you will still have to pay it. You're on the hook to, and where are you going to get the money to pay your house from? From working, right? All right. What if you own the house next door? It's identical to yours, but you rent it out. Produces two incomes, a rent and a tax return, okay? So investment properties are real assets. What else could we buy? What else could we acquire that would meet the definition of a real asset? So there are actually really just only 4 types of real assets, okay? Property that you rent out to someone else, be it commercial, resi, whatever, okay? Businesses that you own, you are the owner of the business, or you're in full majority control of the business, so therefore you can guarantee 2 things. One is that you get paid, and 2, that the business grows because you can work on it. And the third is shares, where you're a minority shareholder in a bigger enterprise that has a board and a CEO running it, okay? And the 4th is what I would broadly refer to as royalties, okay? So, you know, maybe you are a musician or an actor or an inventor, and you create something that then someone else, you license to someone else to sell, and every time they sell it, you get $1 or whatever from that, royalties, okay? All right, now, how do you get rich? Now, this is, everyone wants to be rich, but no one knows the answer to the question, how do you get rich? Now, the actual correct answer to how to get rich is this: accumulate a portfolio of real assets, okay? Accumulate a portfolio of real assets. Accumulate a portfolio of real assets. Now, how many real assets do you own right now? Now, I'll give you a clue. All of you actually own one. It's called your superannuation fund. Your superannuation fund is effectively a share portfolio with some personal insurances thrown in the mix, okay, and some very strict rules about it. Your superannuation fund is receiving dividends from those shares, but they're reinvesting them back into buying more shares. And when you go into retirement phase, then those dividends will be used to help fund your pension that you draw from your super fund, okay? But if you're spinning your wheels financially and wondering why, now you know. That's why, because you don't own any real assets. The only asset you've got to make money with is your human body, right? We go down to Kennards Hire and there's a cement mixer and a trailer and a generator and a jackhammer, and then there's you standing at attention as a piece of equipment ready for hire. And that's what you're doing, right? But your working class upbringing taught you that that's how to get money. Go work for it, right? But there are other ways to get money that are a lot easier, okay? And this is the thing. And people spend their whole life with their blinkers on, with this working class mindset: work hard, you'll be successful, get a job, work. Some people work 3 jobs to get ahead. It's like, dude, chill out, slow down. Come and talk to Daimien, I'll help you out, right? You might need to work 3 jobs for for a year or 2 just to get enough to pay all your bad debts off and get a deposit together. But anyway, all right. Number 7, understand the difference between good and bad debt. Good debt is your friend, bad debt is your enemy. Good debt is debt that's used to buy real assets that then pay themselves off and make money. Bad debt is debt that's used to buy stuff that loses money, okay? So car loans, jet skis, etc. All right, so how much good debt have you got right now? How much bad debt have you got? Make sure you understand the difference between good and bad debt. A lot of people believe all debt is bad. That's not true. If you believe all debt is bad, you are not going to be wealthy, okay? Unless you can like invent the next paperclip or something. But even then, you probably need to borrow money of someone else to get it developed and get the idea to market, right? So good and bad debt. How much good debt have you got right now? Embrace good debt as your friend. The more good debt you've got, the wealthier you're going to be. As long as you've got a plan for, you know, the actual asset that what you're using it for is paying the debt off for you. No one ever got rich without getting into debt. No one ever got rich without getting into good debt. All right. Accountants and financial advisors do not know best, okay? The elephant in the room is real estate. Now, I was really shocked. When I got home from Iraq, my wife's family were like, you need to go and see our financial advisor, Daimien. And I'm like, okay. And obviously their daughter was married to me, so they were concerned for her financial future. And so we went to see this guy. They said, he's an ex-lieutenant commander in the Navy, good man. And he was a good man. I went and saw this bloke. I sat there and I said, mate, I got 110 grand. And I'm going to give you 100 grand to invest. I want you to tell me what you can do with it. I'll keep 10 grand for fund money. He shows me, he gets his little computer out, and they're very good financial advisors. Got all this software and stuff that they project and bar charts and lines going everywhere. And he showed me how he could turn it into 200 grand in 10 years. And I was just like, dude, you know, I was like, okay. And then I said, you got a piece of paper? He goes, yeah. And I showed him how I could turn it into 800 grand in 10 years through property, right? By using that money. Back then, the property's a bit cheaper, right? But using that money to buy 2 properties and turning it into 800 grand worth of equity in that time. He was a good man because he stopped and he looked at me and he said, Daimien, look, I actually can't see anything wrong with what you just said. He said, but you need to understand that financial advisors can't give you advice on property investment. They also can't give you advice on buying a business. And I was like, are you for real, dude? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh. And he goes, but anything else I can help you with? And I was like, the jig is up, you bastards. And he's a nice fella. You know, your financial advisor might be a nice person too. But they're not allowed to give you advice on real estate because they don't want you to give advice because they make money. They don't want to give you advice on real estate because they make money when you buy shares, when you buy managed funds. The way that works is that managed fund company or whatever, they're like, we're raising money for BHP, want us to raise $100 million. So, and then if they raise $100 million for BHP, they get 10% commission on the money they raise, right? So they go to you, they go, oh, put 100 grand into this. That's the way it works. That's how they make their money. Now, some financial advisors might be really good. I haven't met one yet. And shares are better than a savings account, but property. The elephant in the room is literally property. And if you actually reflect, for those of you who are a bit older who've had property for a while, if you reflect on how much money your properties have made you versus the amount of effort you had to put in, easiest money you've ever made, right? Easiest money you've ever made. And often people have one house and it's gone up $1 million and they're like, it doesn't even click. And I say to people, I said, this house made you $1 million. It's now worth $1.5 million. You bought it for 500. They go, yeah. I go, why didn't you go and buy 3 of these or 4 of these? They go, oh, I didn't really think about that, Damo. We're just too busy paying off the one we had. I said, don't worry about paying off the one you have. Put the minimum on it. Put all your money into buying more. And then in 10 years from now, you can sell one of the investment properties, pay this one off, sell and keep the rest. All right, how an investment property works. So that was number 8, right? Accountants and financial advisors don't know best, okay? All right, you need an accountant, you need a financial advisor, just they're not captain of the team, yeah? Really important. Right, you're the captain of the team, by the way. All right, how an investment property works. The cost of owning a property goes up over time with inflation and maintenance costs go up, etc. But the income you earn from a property goes up far greater, okay? So costs probably go up 2 to 3% per annum, maybe a little bit more, and income goes up 7% per annum on historical average. Now, neither of those lines would be straight, they'd be wavy lines, but that would be the general trend, okay? Now, when you first get a property, it might be losing money because you borrow 90, 95%. The cost of owning the property might exceed the income you're receiving. This is where interest-only loans have a great effect. For the first 5 years, you might put your investment property on interest-only so that you don't have to make a principal payment, and that gives you a few $100s extra a week that are not being consumed, and then you can go through. Now, the assumption is if you follow golden rule number 1, which is buy where it's booming, after that 5 years, your property has dramatically increased in value, but so has the rent, and then you can switch it off the interest-only onto P&I and start paying the property off. Now, here's the thing about the green zone. It might only be $50 a week positive at first, but when you get down the line here, okay, when that mortgage clears out, it'll be massively profitable, right? And then not only that, as time goes by, it keeps getting better and better and better. And your little bastard kids are going to, they're really going to love you when you go. But by the time you go, the thing's just going to be a money producing machine. So maybe you sell it before you die and give it all to charity. But anyway, now another way to look at investment property is apples, like an apple tree, right? The apples are the rent and the tree is the capital growth. So, but you've got to have the foresight to plant the seeds, okay? And this is a good metaphor, right? Everyone wants the apple tree, but you can't just create an apple tree, a mature tree on day one. You have to put the work in, right? You've got to dig the hole, plant the seed, water it, wait, be patient. And then you might get a few little apples, but you let it go. You leave it long enough to be a massive tree, right? And we don't just want one apple tree, we want a whole orchard of them, okay? Now, what happens, a lot of people, they'll inherit a property and they'll sell the bloody thing. And it's like, you're just like, and I just visualize like a drunk person with a chainsaw chopping down the apple tree, all right? Now, we don't want to chop down the apple tree. We just want to keep picking the apples and sell them or eat them and plant more seeds. All right, how's a property reduce your tax? 100 grand income, you pay probably 25 grand tax on it. You own this investment property, it rents for 33 grand a year. The rent on your investment property is taxable income. At this point in time, you would have a tax bill, not a tax return, because the rent is actually taxable, right? Now, we then, of course, can claim all the deductions, and these are all the expenses. This property is a bit of a dog at this stage. It's earning $33,800, but it's losing $41,800, okay? That's not very good. Screw that. I don't want to subsidize this property to the tune of, what's it, about $8,000 a year. Now, this is interesting though. Watch what happens. Depreciation, not a real expense, just a theoretical expense, drives us into the red on paper only. Our taxable income is now 72 grand, not 100 grand. That triggers a tax return. Tax return is calculated as $8,392 if we get 30% of the 27,974 back, right? And now, is this property really positive or negative cash flow? Well, it's receiving $33,800 in rent, but $8,392 in tax return. So it's over 42 grand of cash in the bank, but only losing under 42 grand in cash out, or $418 a year start point. Now, if we buy where it's booming, the rent's going to go up. That figure will just get bigger. All right, not bad. Now, if you want a property like that, make sure you do book yourself in, become a client, and my team will help you. They'll get some. These properties do exist, and they do exist in high quality locations. All right, how to build a portfolio from scratch. So let's say you didn't inherit 150 grand, you're broke, right? Or you've only got a little bit of money. Raise a deposit. Get deployed operations, exercises, or training courses. Why? Because they keep you busy and you get allowances, they feed you and you get allowances, right? So you don't have to necessarily go to war, but you can, just volunteer for everything. All right, now if you're a civvy and you're not in defence anymore, you maybe go work somewhere in a remote town, or take a contract in a regional centre where they're paying extra money, or go work in the mines for a year or something like that. They've got options. Right, number 2, DVA compo payout. Now, I'll give you a great example. Tinnitus is that ringing sound in you. When you lay in bed at night, you hear that sound. Okay, that's a claim. I had no idea. I've got that. Why? I was in the artillery. But everyone gets it in defence, because you've got firing rifles, you've got riding in the back of trucks, jet noise and flight lines, engine rooms in ships, all of that stuff, right? Now, a tinnitus claim is real simple. Go to the GP, get a referral, go to audiologist. Audiologists can't actually prove you don't have it. They just ask you questions, you answer them honestly, they then diagnose you with it. You take that back, you give it to your DVA advocate, send it in. 3 to 6 months later, you got $36,000 in the bank. That's just one claim. Number 3, get family help. Your family can help you in 3 different ways. They can give you some cash towards the deposit, they can lend you some cash towards the deposit, or they can go guarantor on the loan to buy the property. That's where you borrow 105% of the property purchase price, 100% to pay for the property, 5% to pay for the stamp duty, legal fees, etc. Mum and dad then guarantor on the loan. You pay the repayments, you fall over, they have to pick them up. But if you follow golden rule number 1, buy where it's booming, that property will be in a booming location, and within a few short years, it'll be worth more than the loan. You go back to the bank and you say, hey, bought the property for 500, loan's 530, the property's now worth 650, worth more than the loan. Can you please release mum and dad's guarantee? They'll release it, or you'll go to another bank and refinance it with another bank. All right, first home money grants, or save. Now, you cannot save your way to wealth, but you can save your way to a deposit for a property, okay? And it's only the first property that we need to work hard for, because after that, it's easy, and I'll show you in a second. All right, so let's buy a $650,000 property, 65 grand deposit, 30 grand costs. Boom. All right, why would we do that? Here's why. Because it's going to go up in value if we follow golden rule number 1, buy where it's booming. The limit that we can borrow will increase, and the loan will still be the same figure, but it will have shrunk relative to the value of the property. It's a bit like if you bought a property in 1970 for $8.5 grand and you had an $8,000 mortgage back, and you're on $2,000 a year salary, you're probably crapping yourself then about how expensive your mortgage was. Fast forward 50 years, if you still had an $8,000 mortgage on your house, but your house is worth $1.5 million, you wouldn't be upset, would you? Anyway, righto, so now we can access the equity in that home. We get a second loan against the first property using none of our own cash. What are we going to use that loan for? We're going to use that loan to pay the deposit, the stamp duty, all the other costs on the second property. Now we have 2 properties. Okay, so the first property is the hardest. But if you follow the rules, and you buy where it's booming, it'll go up in value, and then you'll be able to refinance it and get your second property using only your money. If you already own property that has equity in it, you don't need any cash. You can just use the one you got, get an equity loan, boom, like that. Talk to our team, they'll organise it all for you. All right. Then you just start accumulating. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, and so on, okay? To make that work, you need the golden rules. Buy where it's booming. Make sure your properties pay for themselves or near enough. If your property's costing you 50 to 100 bucks a week, that's all right. If you can't save 50 to 100 bucks a week now, you've got issues, and you go and have a look at good hard look at yourself, right? But if it's costing you like $1,000 or 50 to 500, that's too much, yeah? And the novelty's going to wear off real quick, okay? Make sure you probably pay for themselves or close enough, and never ever sell. When you sell, you're the drunk man with a chainsaw chopping down the apple tree, okay? Keep the property. If you've got a property at the moment that you think's a bit of a dog, don't sell it. Book yourself into the team and ask them to go through it, run the numbers on it, and see. You might be really close to it breaking even. There might be some things you can do with the finance, some different things that you can do to make that property perform for you. But there's an old saying in property investment: is time has a habit of making the worst investor look good. And if you just hang on to the bloody thing, maybe it costs you 50 bucks a week or 100 bucks, 200 bucks. If you hang on to it, it eventually will right itself and be a real asset that you appreciate having. Generally, you regret every property you ever sell. All right. Now, if you believe that rent money is dead money, listen carefully to what I'm about to teach you, okay? I'm going to challenge you on that. Rent money is dead money, but just listen, right? Okay. All right, Bob and John live side by side. They live in their own homes. They're very happy. Bob's happy. He's got his house. He worked really hard to get into his house. Bob did. And anyway, John has an idea. He says, Bob, yes, mate, I've got an idea. If we live in our own home, there is no tax benefit to living in our own home. We can't claim any of the costs on tax, nothing at all. He goes, there's only one tax benefit, which is what? Capital gains tax exempt if you sell the house. The golden rule number 3 is never sell. So if you're never going to sell, that benefit is irrelevant. All right, John says, Bob, let's swap houses. I'll live in your house, you live in mine. Okay, now we can claim everything on tax. Bob says, oh, that's brilliant. Great idea. First week rolls around, Bob's got to pay John rent. Now it doesn't make sense. Now Bob's pissed. He picks up the phone, rings up John, says, John, this is rubbish, mate. Look, he goes, first of all, I cannot afford to pay a mortgage and pay rent at the same time. All right. Second of all, no disrespect to you, mate, but I don't want to pay your house off for you. And I hear people say, I don't want to pay someone else's house, right? And so this is a rubbish idea. I want out. John says, no, it's good, Bob. It's good. He goes, no, it's rubbish. He goes, well, listen, something's about to happen. He goes, what's that? I say, well, I'm going to pay you rent. And that cancels out. You see, it's okay to rent if you own a property somewhere else that someone's renting off you. It's not okay to just not own property, okay? That's the first thing. If you don't own a property, you need to get laser-like focus, stop pissing all your money away, and focus on just getting that first property. Once you got the first one, you can grow your portfolio. You don't have to worry too much about saving. The first property is critical. But not only, when you do the numbers like this, like no one should be living in their own home. Everyone should be renting off each other, because then no one owns their own home. They just own investment properties, right? And all the properties that you do own, you can claim. Now, there are 2 times you should buy your own home. 2 times and 2 times only. I'm going to teach you what they are. But here's the thing, right? So this concept's called rent vesting. You might have heard of it, but that's what it means, okay? You're better off just renting. Now, the property that I live in, for example, it's a $3.5 million inner city apartment, right? It's like it's not a sort of a sub penthouse, right? And I rent it for $13.50 a week. Now, if I was to own it, it would cost me a bloody arm and a leg, right? Because it's much cheaper to rent it than buy it. And when you do the analysis, you'll see how this works, okay? So it's interesting. But if you're in the defence force or any other trade that gives you subsidised rent, and the average Joe on the street is better off renting and buying investment properties, then you even more so should be staying in a service residence or on RA, because you're even better off. You're triple better off, right, by doing it. Okay, so rent money is dead money, but so is all this other stuff. And when a lot of people get a rude shock when they live in their own home, and they move out of a married quarter and they move in their own home, they get a rude shock. They're like, where's all that money going? I'll tell you where it's going. When you were renting, you didn't have to pay the interest on the loan. You didn't have to pay council rates. You didn't have to pay insurance. You didn't have to pay maintenance. Now you got to pay all those. And interest on your loan is dead money. You know, you're paying your house off, sure, but about 80% of your loan repayment is dead money. It's going to the bank in interest charges. So there's dead money no matter where you go. Right? There's dead money in living in your own home, and there's dead money in renting, okay? The idea is to minimize the dead money, okay? Minimize the dead money. You're going to pay some either way, minimize it. And rent vesting is actually the best way to do it. Shock horror. Okay, here's all the entitlements. I'm going to go through these real quick and then wrap it up. Okay, first homeowners grant varies from state to state. It's only for your first owner-occupied home. You can buy an investment property first and buy your own home later, and you will not be disqualified. When the first homeowners grant first came out, like 20 years ago, whatever it was, you couldn't own an investment property first. You now can. Okay. Must be brand new property. If you want the first homeowners grant, must be brand new, which means you're probably going to have to build a house and land package. Okay. That's the way it is. Why is that? It's what they call a policy mechanism. Because they're letting all the migrants into the country, they need to grow the number of houses. So how do they? One technique is to go, okay, well, we're only going to let people get the first homeowners grant if they build a new house, right? So now that's what happens. All right, must move in within the first 12 months from key handover, okay, and you must live in it for at least 6 months. Now, no one's going to check if you're there. You just want to designate the house as your principal place of residence, enroll to vote there, maybe register your car there, and then leave it. Now, do not rent it out officially or claim anything on tax for that 6-month period. Otherwise, you'll be double dipping on benefits. And if they catch you, best case, they'll just take the first homeowners grant back. Worst case, they'll charge you for fraud. Right, not good for your military career getting a fraud charge. Stamp duty concessions vary from state to state. When you buy a property, the state government tax you. If you're a first home buyer, all states other than the Northern Territory will give you a discount on that. So let's use an example, say Queensland. Right now in Queensland, you're going to get $54,000 of benefits. So if you had a little shock before where the example said you need 95 grand to buy that house, well, you've already got 54 straight away just from the first homeowners grant and stamp duty concessions if you do it, right? All right, HPAS, full-time service members only, first home that you buy while serving the full-time ADF. If both you and your spouse are serving, you both get one, just can't use it at the same time. 12 months tenure on your posting order when you sign the contract, or you're not eligible, you have to wait until you get to the next location. It's $16,949 before tax. If it's taxed at 30%, you'll end up with $11,800. If you're taxed at 37%, you'll end up with $10,600. Okay, let's call it 11 grand. So we're in Queensland, we're getting 54 grand from the Queensland government, in 30 grand in grant and 24 grand off the stamp duty, 54 grand. And now we're getting 11 grand off the Defence Force, so we're sitting at $65,000. We still haven't touched our own money or borrowed any money from friends and family. HEPSI, the basic principle of HEPSI is that if you're going to serve the nation, you should not be denied the right to live in your own home. So when you get posted and you have to sell the house, buy another one, Defence will cover the transaction costs of replacing the property. Right? HPAS is the entitlement to buy property number one. That's all you get when you purchase the first property. But HEPSI applies for all the transactions after that. So if you get posted away, you sell that first property, you're going to incur agents commission, advertising costs, legal fees, etc. So mortgage, maybe loan discharge fees and things like that. So your Defence will reimburse all those. When you get to the new location, you buy another property. Okay, you're going to have stamp duty, LMI, building inspection, pest inspection. Defence will reimburse all those as well, legal costs, etc. You must maintain the sell by sequence, which means you have to sell the last house before you can claim anything on the next one. So don't sell, right? So what do I say? Don't sell. But if you've already bought and sold properties, go and check whether you've claimed all this or not. I didn't know what HPAS and HEPSI really were until I'd bought and sold the first property and bought another property in Darwin that we're living in. Okay, and so I put in a HPAS and 2 HEPSI claims, got 45 grand back in one hit. All right, DHOAS. Okay, DHOAS is worth a lot of money, a hell of a lot of money. Okay, now you must have served in the ADF regular reserves on or after the 1st of July 2018. If you got out before then, I'm sorry, but you're not eligible for that scheme. Now, to qualify for the scheme, you've got to do 2 years in the permanent forces or 4 years in the reserves. And the way it works is every month they pay that money in the right-hand column to your mortgage to help you pay it off. All right. Now, the number of years of subsidy is your length of service minus qualifying period. So if you've been in the PAF, the Permanent Air Force, for 20 years, then you will get 18 years of subsidy. Okay. Right. War service adds 5 years of subsidy, but does not fast-track your eligibility. So, yeah, you just get an extra 5 years. You must do 20 years full-time or part-time to retain the Tier 3. If you get out before that, the remaining years of entitlement will drop down to half the rate, which is tier 1. If you look at those numbers, you see there that tier 3, 1155, tier 1 is half of that, and tier 2 is 75% of that. All right, now the maximum benefit you can get is 20 years or 25 years if you jag a war service deployment. Okay, so therefore, you need to do 22 or 24 years to maximize the DHOAS benefit. Okay, so hear me now, this is really important. If you've had a gutful of the Defence Force and you're thinking about getting out, don't get out. Just transfer to the reserves and do 20 days without fail. It's my firm belief. If you're in a leadership position in defence, someone puts a discharge on your desk, you grab them and say, are you aware of your DHOAS entitlement? Do you know how much it's worth? And they'll go, what's that? And you go, it's worth $346,000, mate, if you do it right. And if you leave the Defence Force altogether, you're going to miss out on it. Okay, you're going to forfeit it. So it's really, really important. Okay. Now, what I say to people is just transfer the reserve. Just do something cruisy. One of my clients is in the Navy Reserve now. He's ex-patrol boats. So once a year, he goes up to Cairns, gets on a patrol boat for 3 weeks, goes fishing and surfing and whatever they snorkeling or whatever they do up there, and then he goes home. Cha-ching, 13 grand of DHOAS subsidies plus the tax-free pay for the 3 weeks, and gets to catch up with all of his old mates. All right, mistakes that people make with DHOAS. First mistake is they start using it before they get to tier 3. If you start using it before tier 3, you're going to burn years of entitlement at the lower rate. Why would you do that? So hold off, you know. And the other one is they get out. Don't get out. Just stay in the reserve. Just turn up to the fun stuff, you know. All right, when they ring you up and say, we need a whole heap of non-checks done, can you come in? Oh, sorry, really busy at work, you know. Oh, we've got an adventure training this week and you want to come? Sure. Yeah, I'm available. All right, DHOAS lump sum. Take 4 years as a lump sum. Must have 4 years to take. Only paid at tier 1 level, even if you're on tier 2 or 3. So at the moment, it's worth 27 grand. So we're up to $65,000, I think, in benefits. You get this on top. There's 27.5 on top of that. So what's that? $82,500 this DHOAS lump sum in there. It's worth a lot. Okay. Now it just keeps going, right? But I would definitely do this. The way to think about this is if you take the lump sum, your DHOAS subsidy is going to run out 4 years earlier in 20 years' time. So reach into the future, grab that money, bring it to today, and invest it, right? Now, you do have to tell them that you're using the money on the house that the properties that the loan is on, right? So you go, sure, yeah, I'm going to do some renos or whatever. But then that's 27 grand of your other money that you don't have to spend on the house, right? So you spend the lump sum money on your house and your other money goes to an investment property or whatever, right? I just know it's not paid prior to settlement. So if you need the lump sum to form your deposit, you've got to maybe borrow that money from friends and family. And then when the lump sum lands, I think it's 8 weeks later, then you can then you pay them back then. All right, so should you buy or stay in diversified accommodation? Now, this is a bit of dead money analysis, right? It's cheaper to rent than buy. And I probably should update this. I think the costs have gone up a bit on the living in cost, but not by much. As you can see there, you know, living in your own home with a $675,000 mortgage at 6%, which is a good rate right now, will cost you $48,000 a year dead money. Whereas you just live in a service residence for less than 20 grand a year. You tell me what's smart. All right, buy where you're posted, buy where it's booming. Is where you're posted booming? Should you buy your own home? This is where you are posted is booming, and you're up to tier 3 DHOAS, right? And you intend to do 22 or 24 years, then yes, buy your own home, right? And it goes something like this. You're posted where it's booming. You sign a contract on a house and land package. You stay in your service residence or RA. That will take up probably a year from the contract to key handover. You're still entitled to your service residence while it's been built. You get a free removal to move into the property. You live in the property for 6 months and then you get out, or you get posted away, right? Or you might stay there for the whole year and just get posted away, right? And now you cannot use DHOAS on an investment property in the acquisition of the property, but you can only use DHOAS to buy your own home. But then if you move out of that home and turn it into an investment property, the DHOAS can stay on it and the subsidy can keep getting paid to that property. Always buy where it's booming. Only use your entitlements when you're posted where it's booming. That's the first time you buy your own home. The second time you buy your own home is at the end of the game when you're a multimillionaire and you just want to have a beautiful house with everything the way you want it. But if you buy the dream home early, too early, you'll become a slave to the mortgage of that and you will never get ahead. Some of you might be in that position now. You've gone and bought the dream home, but you've got a massive mortgage and it's killing you, right? You've got to get out of it, team, right? If you shoot too early, all you'll ever have is that house. And when you get to retirement, you're going to have to sell it because you won't have any other assets to sell. You won't have any other assets producing an income. All right, DVA claims, and then we are done. All right, proper process. Now, I just want to stress, I'm not a DVA advocate, okay? I'm a veteran, and I've been through the process, and this is the world according to me, okay? If you are watching this and you're a DVA advocate, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for volunteering and being an advocate. Anyone who volunteers to be an advocate is a good person trying to help their fellow veterans. Now, the first step is to get a great advocate. Now, just like there are bad school teachers and good school teachers and bad doctors and good doctors, unfortunately, there are good advocates and some not so good. And we don't want to offend our fellow veterans and we don't want to upset anyone. So we just need to be subtle about it and suss them out first, okay? Because their competence has a direct relationship with how much money you're going to get, okay? And that money is money that you're going to invest to look after you and your wife or your husband and your children, okay? And offending an advocate is avoiding offending an advocate is not more important than looking after your family, right? So just obviously don't be rude, but just suss them out first. And even like a job interview, maybe interview 2 or 3. Ask around. If you know someone who's got a really good outcome, ask them. All right, now a couple that I recommend: Veteran Health Centre, Veteran Benefits Australia. I personally use Slater and Gordon Lawyers. Pia Anderson, PIA Anderson. Now, if you want to use Pia, write this down: slatergordon.com. Now that's their website. Go to their website, contact us form. So I'd like to talk to Pia Anderson about DVA. Daimien Patterson recommended her, right? The reason why you recommend me is not, I don't get any kickbacks whatsoever from them. It's unethical for them to give me any kickbacks because they have to be completely objective and act on your behalf as a law firm, right? However, if they know that I sent you, they're going to make sure that you get priority and get looked after because they want me to keep sending people. They just can't publicly admit that, right? But Pia is fantastic, and she's the one that got me the outcome in conjunction with my fantastic doctor. All right, next step is to confirm all your possible claims, okay? Before you go shooting off claims, go and make sure that you've identified every possible one. Now, first is to review your med docs. Now, your med docs are actually kept electronically, and there's a form your advocates know they can fill it out and you'll get it sent in the mail. Print them all off, go through page by page, find it. Now, the first myth about DVA claims is that if it's not in your med docs, you can't claim it. That is not true. Of my 14 accepted conditions, only 7 were in my med docs. Right. Then do a full medical review of an ex-military GP. So all those doctors you served in the Defence Force with, where do they go when they get out? Most of them go and become GPs. That's the sort of person you want. Why? Because they've served themselves and they understand. My GP is a legend. He was a digger first, and then he got out and studied medicine, and then he got back in as a doctor, right? But he gets it, and he knows how it all works. But he said to me, Daimien, you've got to come in, 2-hour appointment. I said, 2 hours? He goes, mate, we've got to do a thorough, like top to bottom, talking about psych, sleep, alcohol, everything. And he goes, you know all those forms you filled out when you're in the army for your med reviews? I was like, yeah. He goes, well, this time we're going to fill them out. We're going to tell the truth. I was like, okay. You know, so anyway, go through, identify them, then gather all your evidence. Now, another one of the myths is it takes 2 to 3 years for your claims to be approved. That's true and not true. Some claims are going to go through in 3 to 6 months if they're straightforward and easy. The more complex ones might take 2 to 3 years. But one of the biggest delays is that right there, specialist appointments, getting to the specialist. Sometimes you got to wait 12 months to get in front of a good psych, okay? If that's what happens, sure, make that appointment with the psych, then ring that psych office and say, my name is Bob Smith, and this is my mobile number, and I am like a coiled spring to fill any vacant appointments that come up. So if anyone falls over, doesn't show up, call me and I will be there, you know, and then do that. But also go looking for a second or third option and see if they can get you in sooner, because that's a big part of the delay is getting in front of the specialist. The specialists then write all their reports. The advocate will collect all those, and then you submit your claims. Now, some advocates disagree with what I'm about to say, but I believe you should do it in two ways. I believe you should, all your claims that are straightforward and going to be approved easily, put them in first. Put them in, get some money within 3 to 6 months. Take the financial pressure off yourself. Get rid of all your bad debts. Get some cash in the bank. Have a bit of a buffer. If you got a bit more, maybe go buy a property or two. But make sure you just take the stress off yourself first. Then do the second wave, and then get the big money in on the second wave, right? The reason why, and I've had people say, "Oh, Damo, you just want people to do their claims so they buy investment properties," and I'm like, I thought about that, and I thought, well, yeah, that's true. I'll tell you why, because I've got veteran mates too, and I've seen many of them piss all their money against the wall, wasted on crap, and they got mental health issues, they got troubles getting back to work and things like that, and then they waste all the money, and then they end up with nothing. And the best thing those people could do is go put it into a property, get it all locked up in the property, and then have that property there so that they don't spend the money, right? And but not only that, I want to see my fellow veterans succeed financially. I don't think that you should have to be poor because you serve the country. I think you should be able to be wealthy, serve the country and be wealthy. I don't think it should be a choice. All right, that's the DVA claims. Right, third last slide. This is real data here on the slide, team, and the left-hand column is the first initial. I deleted the rest of their names. Second column was the address of the property. Third column is the year they bought it. You can see the purchase price, current values. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see their capital growth of those properties. That's actually not how much money they really made, though. That's just the increase in the value of the property. But like I used the example earlier, let's pick the worst line on there. The worst line was 24%, right? So let's work out how much that would be in actual return on their money that they put in. So the 24%, they bought the property for $531,000. So that's a $53,000 deposit. $531,000 minus $53,000. They've got a mortgage of $478,000, right? $478,000 mortgage. That property is now worth $660,000. So $660,000 minus $478,000 is they got $182,000 worth of equity. Okay, $182,000 worth of equity. Now, how much did they have to put into the property in the first place? $53,000 deposit, maybe another 20, 22. Let's say they put $75,000 in, and they bought that property 3 years ago. Their $75,000 is now $182,000. Okay, so that's basically 200-something% return, but 250% return on their money in 3 years. 250%, not 7% per annum, like your shares get. Like, screw shares, eh? Like, unless you're going to get onto the next Uber or something, this stuff is powerful. And this is the important thing, that you remember that leverage factor. All right, if you want a copy of that book, you just go to type in book, please, what you see there. Book, please, and your correct postal address. I do not know your postal address. You haven't had to provide it to me yet. If you would like the team to send you a copy of that book, just type in book, please, and your postal address, and we will send it to you. Last slide. Next step, book yourself in, team. Don't be sitting there going, oh, like, just act. My team are solid, right? You can trust them. They're competent. They're good people. They are going to look after you. Okay. You don't have to commit to the whole property, the whole process. You don't have to go and sign a contract on a property tomorrow. There's a very deliberate process we go through step by step to take you through, and we do it at the pace you're comfortable with. Okay. Now, that starts with that strategy session where we go through your personal goals. And what you've achieved so far, full review of your situation. You can do far more than you think you can, and then put a plan together to achieve your goals. Full service and support normally costs $497. If you book off the webinar, it costs you $297. If you use the QR code there in the corner and book yourself in, you will only be charged $247. Okay, 100% money back guarantee. All right, you'll then be fully supported by your team. And if you surround yourself with the right people and take action, you will succeed, okay? But if you just surround yourself with the wrong people and do nothing, what do you reckon is going to happen? It's really that simple, right? Get the right people around you, take action, it'll happen.